Well, welcome everybody. People probably still join a little bit as we get going, but I'll do quick introductions here. This is I believe our 10th episode of this series, and possibly the 9th. I should know that off the top of my head, but I do not. Yep, the 10th episode. So in this series, it started last July with Harry Konerman. I'm an SPC now what, and it's kind of turned into more of a talk show. Where I get the privilege of interviewing different SPCs out there, and they're all at different points on their journey. Sometimes they're just getting started. Other times, like the two esteemed gentlemen we have with us today, they've been doing this for some time. And so we have two SAFE fellows, both who work at Scaled Agile. We've got Joe Vallone. He's the SAFE Experts Program Lead. That's from SPC to SPCT to SAFE Fellow. He leads that program. Also, we've got Dr. Steve Mayner. He's the VP of the Framework and a Methodologist. He's one of the small number of men and women who actually write the framework. Joe, Steve, anything you'd add to your intros?
Happy to be here. Happy to support our partner. And I would say if this is a talk show, I guess I'm here for comic relief.
As long as we don't have to do any song or dance, I'm good with it.
I've never seen you. It's funny you say that, because when I think about the people at Scaled Agile, most likely to be seen dancing and singing, you two are the bottom of that list.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that.
Although maybe there's a cool PI planning video in the future somewhere. But anyway, so welcome. I'm Phil Gardiner. I work here at Applied Frameworks. Marywood. Today what we're talking about today is this idea of mentoring, right? And I'll tell you that I've been honored on my journey. I've benefited from the mentoring of both these individuals. Dr. Mayner was my mentor and guide in the SPCT program when I was going from being a starry-eyed SPC to an aspiring SPCT. And Joe, I'm learning from him now as I work to continue my own learning journey and mentoring others. So really happy to have the two of them here. Our topics today are really kind of talking about mentoring, both from a formal perspective and an informal perspective. We'll talk about being a mentee and being a mentor. That was something that it was eye-opening to me, is the differences in the use of that word. I consider myself to kind of be a natural mentor, mainly because I leverage some of my own experiences when I help cultivate capabilities in others. However, there's actual something called formal mentoring, and there's responsibilities from both the mentee and the mentor perspective. Joe and Steve can talk about the SAFE Experts Program, the SPCT program, and we'll talk a little bit about how do you get the most out of a mentor and even how to find one. So let's start off with this idea of formal and informal mentoring. When we talk about formal mentoring, Dr. Mayner or Joe, do one of you want to talk about your experiences as a formal mentor?
You want to kick us off, Steve?
Sure. So as Phil mentioned, there's the formal mentor role that we have at Scaled Agile for SPCs who are on the journey to becoming an SPCT. That's probably the closest and most relevant in this particular call and to these particular set of attendees. And we can certainly go into as much detail as you want to go in terms of what that particular process looks like. But just zooming the camera back a little bit, over the course of now 35 plus years in my career, I've had the opportunity to be all of the above, right? Both formal and informal, both mentor and mentee. And my observation in retrospect from all of that is it's great to have all of the above. There's no one right or wrong or best approach, right? I've been through multiple formal mentorship programs, working for some very large companies in my past that had these well-established processes you had to get nominated into, and then had a very outlined kind of thing, and even provided helps for both the mentor and the mentee that got assigned in terms of what that should look like, or how to make that successful. those are fantastic. If you have any chance to do anything like that, take advantage of it. You will learn a tremendous amount, right? But then I also I've had some great informal mentors. We never sat down and, you know, had a written agreement of any kind. But now look back in my life, both personally and professionally, and I can absolutely, and those who've ever done a life map like we do in the Leading by Example, you notice a lot of those individuals end up coming out as you look back on your life and the influence that they had and how they've contributed to you as an individual. And hopefully we all take the opportunity to give that back and play that similar kind of role for other people when they invite us to do so.
Yes.
So that's kind of my story. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is you've been a mentor and a mentee, and whether or not it's formal and informal, it's all good stuff.
All good. Take like squeeze the juice out of the orange. I did that just for you, Joe, since you're in Florida and understand oranges. So,
Well,
one
not at the
quick
moment.
note.
I'm in France at the moment, but
well, I don't know what the French equivalent is, but
apparently they have orange juice here too. It's they just usually put champagne with it as well. So not having orange juice right now. But from my own journey, I kind of echo Steve's sentiments as well. I think one of the things that we did in you know, Leading by Example course is I found out, or I think both of us found out, Steve and myself found out, Steve was teaching the course. And so if you want to call that a mentee-mentor relationship, I think that's accurate. But we found out a lot of our lives paralleled in amazing ways. I've also been lucky enough to be experienced by that stuff. When I started this Agile journey, I think probably back in 2002 timeframe, and then, you know, started learning about XP and the more technical aspects. When I got to Nokia, I had the opportunity to really learn from informally mentors, people like Dean Leffingwell, people like Ken Schwaber, people like Kenny Rubin, Mike Cohn, that kind of thing. And I was fortunate to really be in those positions at that time to gather their influence and their knowledge. And more lucky now, I think that at Scaled Agile, you know, I can still reach out to Dean and receive feedback and ideas and even peers and other people in the company like Steve that are able to kind of you know, show direction. But on the other hand, I'm also a formal mentor in the SPCT program. I am a guide, and I do have people in my care, and there are requirements and there are things that we need to go through. But I still consider myself a mentee to this day. And I'm, you know, now I suppose there's additional people that I talk to, people like Don Reinertson on a fairly regular basis, and we communicate with. Lovely person. But I've really gotten to know some of these people, and I just, their wisdom, you know, I wouldn't trade that for the world. I echo Steve's sentiments that it doesn't matter whether it's informal or formal. I think for me, it's the learning. It's all about the learning. I learn when I mentor people, and I learn when I receive mentorship. So that's my take on it as well.
You know, I'll share a personal note here is that, you know, sometimes what you learn isn't what you think you need to learn. It's actually what you need to learn, right? And both of these gentlemen saw me through the SPCT program, and for me, it wasn't knowledge of SAFe, right, and how to apply it. It was more about, you know, being more flexible in more situations, giving more grace. You know, if you've, you know, this particular series, right, I believe that wonderful SPCs are a boon to all the enterprises and agencies out there. And not everybody starts out of the same place, the same experiences. And part of this whole series is to help you as an SPC understand that you got your SPC, awesome, great accomplishment. Now the learning really starts, right? And so we did have a question. And by the way, if you don't mind putting the questions in through Q&A, that'll allow us to track them easier. But we had a quick request here. If you don't mind, a quick overview of, it was a quick summary on the SPCT program. If there's anything you could quickly say about that. I know there's somebody else in here has asked about, the path of SPCT.
Sure. I can kind of kick that off. The SPCT program, the history of it, I'm not going to go into gory detail about it, but it started, Drew Gemelo, who is a co-founder of SAFE, started the program probably back in the 2014 timeframe, I would say. That was SPCT class. There was SPCT class number 1. I was in number 2. After I joined Scaled Agile, shortly after that, within a year or so, I was giving him ideas and asked to come aboard to help out and become a guide and do all of those things. And eventually, Drew moved on to bigger and better things, and I've been in the program helping to run it ever since. And essentially, it is an internationally recognized program from Gardiner. We've received good feedback, and the goal really hasn't changed too much from the beginning, and that really is to help companies, help them deliver systems and lend our expertise to them. The overview of the program: to get into the program, there's criteria to get through the program. It's probably about an average of, I think, and when we've tracked the data, somewhere between 16 and 18 months. It is not an easy program to get through. If you're looking for a check the box program, this is not it. There is plenty of stuff for you to do and plenty of stuff for you to learn. To get into the program, to start, obviously there's I don't know, Steve, what do we have now? About 20,000 SPCs out there or something like that, around numbers?
It's approaching 20,000, yeah.
Yeah. So we have plenty of emails that ask, how do I get into the program on that? The way to get into the program or start the journey is to look at our webpage, where we have experts programs listed at scaledagile.com. So scaledagile.com has expert programs, which has a detailed overview. In general, to start the journey, though, you need to be with a partner or an enterprise that has enterprise licensing with us. Those are the starting points. So the partnership has to be a gold partner. This is an exclusive benefit for those partners. Thanks, Phil, for posting that. And then there's several requirements, entry requirements, to get to the point where you feel qualified enough, and we feel that you're qualified enough to start interviewing and kind of continuing your journey. So I'm happy to answer more detailed questions, but that's a brief overview of the program. And Phil, Steve, your thoughts? Anything that I missed or didn't articulate well enough there?
I think the thing I would add to that, and I haven't visited the page lately, so I don't know how much of this is really detailed there. There's a whole bunch of information about how you can get nominated, what the process looks like, and then ultimately, if you go through it successfully, you're now an SPCT. But that is the smallest part of the picture, even though it is incredibly difficult. As Dean tells many audiences, I was actually getting my doctorate at the same time I was doing my SPCT program, and the T was harder.
You told me that.
Yeah, but it really is the beginning of the journey, and it is a symbiotic relationship. So you're going to contribute tremendously to the global community through the skills and the learning and the experience that you have to apply out in the world, whether you're inside of an enterprise or with a company that that sells services around SAFE. But it's even more than that. We then also have an obligation to you as an SPCT to have an ongoing. We're going to continue to invest in you. Phil has been to both our SPCT focused, we call master class, a week at the first of the year, and now is one of our newest fellows, just experienced a fellows retreat. And it truly is a very symbiotic relationship in both. We're investing in you and you're contributing to the larger SAFE community as well. And that's the real value, I think. Yes, it unlocks your ability to do certain things, to teach classes that other people can't teach or whatnot. But that, to me, that's the smallest piece of the picture of the puzzle. Phil can talk about the coaching station experiences and the things like that really enrich his ability, right, to learn more about what's going on in the world and take those experiences and share those with other people. I mean, that really should be the motivation. If you're going into this from the mindset of, well, that's just the next badge I need to capture and hang off the back of my LinkedIn profile, one, you're going to have a real rough time succeeding, and two, you're really kind of missing the point. So that's what I would offer.
Thanks, Steve. I mean, that's a really good summary as well. And yeah, we're not really looking for cert collectors. That's a different area for us. And I know, and I may be pronouncing this wrong, but Anita had asked a question about co-trainer. If co-trainer is a path to move up as an SPCT, I would say it certainly can be. It doesn't hurt. The co-trainer program is designed as part of Experts program to get you experience as an SPC in teaching, implementing SAFE, so you can kind of see what you're in for, and there are requirements to become a co-trainer that are not exactly the same as the entrance requirement for SPC. We kind of look at it with a different lens, but they are similar. So it does give you some programmatic experience, but more importantly, it starts your journey on the learning and teaching part of that. The limitations on that is, again, it's only offered to our gold partners and SES. And secondly, it's only for a year. It is not a special certification. It's not a separate program that is meant to be a career choice. It's simply used to help you gain experience. It's not a mentor-mentee official program where people in the SPCT program who move from prospect to nominee, meaning you're being accepted into the program. Once you're accepted into the program, you are assigned a mentor from Scaled Agile. So based on that, that's a little bit different. But if you're looking for experience, the co-trainer program will help you do that.
Yeah, I'll throw a couple of things on that. So for, if you're an SPC that's got lots of experience in the classroom, right, then certainly, you go work for a gold SPCT partner that can offer the implementing SAFE class, and, submit as a co-trainer. Now, keep in mind, though, that in order to be a co-trainer, you still have to have field experience. There's a big difference. This is my personal opinion, not Scaled Agile speaking here. My personal opinion is that there's something you learn from being out there doing. Our second webinar in this series was with an SPCT candidate, Travis Moore, and Travis was sharing that he said there's some things that are taught and some things that are caught. He had such an awakening when I brought him to a PI planning event with this awesome U.S. Army Futures and Air Force program, and he was just like, "This is not what I expected at all," because there's the interactions in the people, and that's the part that's hard to see. Can I share, Joe? Can I share my journey with you and Adam that's coming up? Is that?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
perfectly fine.
So I'm actually being mentored again by Joe and Adam Mattis to become a guide. So there's a couple people outside that Scaled Agile hires and brings in to help serve as that mentor, and I'm really excited about being able to do that. But when I think about that, this whole idea of being an SPCT, what I found from talking and learning from Joe and Adam more deeply recently is that it's not about the activities. Like I said, it's not about checking the boxes. It's about how you perceive those activities, how you lead, how the trusted advisor aspect. I put it in Slack. they talk about being an SPCT is more than just being a trainer. You're a transformation architect. You need to understand, hey, here's the problems that they're trying to solve, the outcomes they're looking for. Here's how you can wield the framework to get there, to the sustainable success. Also being that trusted advisor. And sometimes being a trusted advisor is saying things like, hey, I don't know, right? I mean, I'll tell you that I've pulled in Steve in my past when I was starting in the government sector, when I was working with the big cyber physical missile warning system. I know Mary probably remembers this. I brought in a phone a friend, Harry Konerman, because while I can give you the basics and tell you what the framework says, I don't have the deep experience in all the aspects of SAFe. And that's something I just want to pass on to all of you, is that you don't have to master all of it. There's so many places you can go as an SPCT, right? For me, I choose to focus on mentoring internal change agents and leaders, and mentoring people and helping people have success with lean portfolio management. Whereas, Dr. Mayner, he's, I put it in chat earlier, this Leading in the Digital Age, it's this amazing transformational leadership series, right? And so everybody's got different areas of expertise. I'm going to close out this piece, this topic, with one last thing, and that's that informal mentoring is, outside of the SPCT program, is all I've had. And I'll tell you that it doesn't have to be long-term big stuff, right? When I think of my mentors, people like M. Campbell Priddy, Eric Willicke, Mark Richards, these are individuals that gave me 5 minutes of their time on a phone call here or there that got me unstuck, right? They shared their top 5 things. And so don't be afraid to reach out and ask people when you feel a synergy with what they're saying and where they're coming from, to reach out and ask, because all they can say is no. And so it doesn't have to be a paid mentoring program to be valuable to you. And then once you've learned, you can give back as well. Let's talk a little bit about serving as a mentee. When we think about being a mentee, one of the things that was an eye-opener, for not really an eye-opener, but it was kind of like I was surprised at how much Steve and Joe told me, hey, look, as the mentee, it's on you. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm here. I want to learn from you. And apparently that's not the way that everybody approaches it. So tell us a little bit about kind of tips for being a mentee and expectations from the mentor.
Well, I can give it a first shot. So yeah, as Phil said, and keep in mind, I had the benefit of being a mentee in some both formal and informal settings for a number of years before I ever got to that initial conversation that Phil and I had. And I learned through those processes that, as a mentor, one of the first things I'm wanting to see is how much is the mentee really wanting to invest and drive the process, right? Or are they taking well, I'm here, right? So, just pour into my head, right? And have the mentor drive the process. And I'm of the school that as a mentee, you need to be clear on what's the purpose of this, especially that gets increasingly more important the more formal it gets, right? But even if it's the 5-minute conversation, if you're reaching out to someone and are going to ask for the gift of their time and their insight, take a few minutes to get really clear on what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. What's your purpose? What's your goal? What's the outcome you're hoping for? And get that clear and express that clearly. One, it tells the person that you're reaching out to that you're not for anybody that has read 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, right? You're not tossing the monkey on your mentor's back, right? You're coming with a clear set of goals, a clear way in which the mentor can assist. And as a mentor, that will be greatly appreciated. It recognizes the value of their time, and it also helps them do a better job of trying to help you with the intended purpose. The more formal it gets, then it becomes even more critical. And I look for the mentee to set, okay, this is what I hope to get from this. This is the, the frequency that, that I would like to have an interaction that seems to meet my needs, but I also want to align it to your availability, and really kind of drive the process, certainly up front, but even more importantly as it goes along. I told Phil, as I've told all my mentees, I'm not going to chase you down. If you go dark, then I'm going to assume that you change directions or are not getting value out of it, and that's fine. But if I don't hear from you, don't expect me to run you down, because this is that's your responsibility. And I just think that's not everybody's going to feel that way. That's my approach, and it tells me a lot from how mentees respond to that and how they take that that challenge and run with it. And the more they are clear that they are responding to that, and do feel ownership of the process and are putting their sweat equity into it, the more I'm going to be motivated to add as much value as I possibly can for them, because that's kind of the contract.
Thanks, Steve. Joe, what do you want to add to that?
Well, I'm not sure I can add much more. I thought Steve's answer was brilliant. But I would comment that people in the SPCT program as a guide, and Steve was also a guide in the program. We do coach them. Do not chase these people down. Everyone's busy, and if you're going to be a mentee, you also need to be very respectful of the mentor's time. Setting up meetings with them is for your benefit. It's for you to learn. It's for you to ask questions. And if you don't want that, that's okay, but don't waste time doing that. So we coach them, hey, this is my availability. This is my, Calendly link or whatever you have to gather that. Please set up some time, but we're not going to do it for you. We're not going to send invites out. We're not going to chase you down. We have other people in the program that do want that feedback, and their time is valuable. Our time is valuable. And I love what Steve said about, being very clear about the purpose from a mentee's perspective. If I reach out to one of my mentors, and there's many, if I reach out to a Dean Leffingwell, if I reach out to Don Reinertson, I'm going to be very clear about what the purpose is, because these are busy people, and their mentorship is very dear to me, and I don't want to waste their time. And but they're very gracious. I mean, Dean's never said don't call me, at least not to my knowledge. He's never said don't reach out to me. None of them have. So I think what Steve said is spot on about making sure that you're clear about the purpose. Especially if it's an informal thing, right? You're not there to just kind of have a coffee chat and ask how their day was. It's not really that. The SPCT program is a little more formal as far as that goes. And so I think the purpose is pretty clear up front. We're pretty clear about the type of information we're looking to pass on to you. But we're not there to provide you the experiences that you need. I mean, that's the agreement with Gold Partners and people like that. But we're there to help answer your questions, help make sure that you're heading down the right path, and that you're going to receive quality out of the program that we expect.
Yeah. And Phil, if I could just jump in, one thing I want to make very clear: this isn't a power distance thing. This isn't our time is more valuable than somebody else's time thing. Let me just kind of set that clarity. This is a matter of, I think about it as a parent who raised 5 children, right? Who, they get interested in activities, or I did the same thing with them. Part of this is because I care about them enough that it's an important life skill for them to grow into taking ownership of something, and getting in sports and taking care of their own equipment, and understanding the game schedule and and those things, as opposed to me hand holding them through everything. It wasn't because I'm more important to them. I actually care about them enough to understand that they're going to learn and they're going to grow by having that opportunity, and by doing it for them, I'm actually robbing them of that growth experience. And I think this is very similar, that the mindset, I think Joe would completely agree, that we're taking into this is because we personally have experienced it, we want to make sure that you have those opportunities for similar experiences. And that's the motivation behind, hey, we really want the mentee to drive the process.
And it's, I can tell you from my own personal experience, there was a period of a few months where I was debating, do I really want this? And I know Steve was my guide at the time, and it's like I went silent for 2 or 3 months. And now where I'm in my journey now, I'd be like, okay, I'd be wondering what's going on with that guy. But at the same time, I'm not going to go bug him, because this ball's in their court. Yeah, so we do, Robert, we do have we will be recording this and posting it on the YouTube playlist, where we've got all of these recorded. I want to just move away from the experts program for just a moment and talk a little bit about just kind of mentoring mentee in general, right? So, I talk about, we do consulting services here at Applied Frameworks. And one of the things that I consider to be a differentiator is that we can do an implementation that includes mentoring, where we mentor the RTE, we mentor the internal change agents, we mentor the person leading the transformation. And when I talk about mentoring in that light, it's really about helping cultivate and enhance their capabilities. They're leading the transformation, we aren't, but they've got the benefit of our experience in our backdrop, so that when when we leave, they've got this, right? And those of you that have seen my talks before, that's ingrained in my DNA. I believe that to have sustainable success with SAFe, you've got to have internal change agents that can lead this, because we're temporary as outside, but that mentoring can really help. And the things that Joe and Steve have shared, I would kind of go the same way, right? So if someone hires us to come in and help them launch an ART, for example, or implement LPM, and they want us to mentor them along the way, it's the same thing. If the person's not seeking out those one-on-one conversations and that time to take a deeper understanding, it's hard for us to force that, right? And so a lot of the great advice they gave there. When you think about serving as a mentor, right, I think we've kind of talked about both sides of the coin as we've shared our stories. Anything that Dr. Mayner or Joe that you'd want to share regarding, serving as a mentor outside the program, maybe as a, in the Air Force, in previous jobs, previous roles, things like that?
Yeah, I think if we're talking outside the SPCT program, I think SAFe's model hasn't really changed all that much in terms of what we do and the respect that we show the companies. We use our partners. We don't have this big advisory department or organization that goes out. We never want to be in that service and compete. But our job is really, I think you summed it up, Phil. Our job at Scaled Agile is not to give them the fish. It's to teach them how to fish, so that when we leave, it doesn't collapse. And that includes the mentorship of the people in the program, and the companies that we go to, visiting one here this week. And a lot of it is about sharing our own experiences and things that we've done. It's really not about, we don't, even at times when we do consulting, it's not long-term engagements. Nobody's ever going to know that company. Nobody at Scaled Agile is ever going to know that company as well as the people in that company. And it makes no sense for us to think about, well, we're going to fix your company, we're going to do this. No, that's your job. Your job as the person there. What we can do, though, is we can give you the education and we can give you the guidance so that you can be better prepared to do that. So I don't know if that's what you mean, but in other areas of my life, you know, I've grown a lot since, hopefully I continue to grow, but early in my career, you know, I can tell you my own kind of story. Early in my career as a manager, I was personally, and I shared this story yesterday with the company I was at, I was personally hurt if someone left my team, right? If I had, you know, several teams and somebody left, I kind of took it as personal, like, hey, you're going somewhere, and why are you going? Why don't you want to stay? Don't you love me anymore? I mean, you know, I'm not going to get into the psychological aspect of that, but I was personally hurt by that. And when I went through my own leadership journey and through my grad school, and we kind of talked about those things, I came to realize that I'm looking at this through the wrong way, the lens. It's not really about me at all. And I gained some maturity to the point, Steve would argue, I'm not quite there at maturity level, but that's fine. My wife would have the same opinion, but I gained the maturity. I think that when it happened after I'd gone through some experiences and someone said, hey, you know, I'm leaving, or whatever the case was, I was genuinely happy because I thought, all right, you know, this person is going on to do something else. They're going to learn some new skills, and they're doing it to better themselves. That should be celebrated. And yeah, I was sad to see them leave, but I wasn't angry about it. I felt genuine joy and pride, you know, like, I hope I provided you, you know, I'm thinking to myself, I hope I provided you some value while you were here, but man, go off and do great things and learn new things. I mean, we've all transitioned to different jobs and different positions, and we do that not to hurt anybody. We do that because we're trying to learn and we're trying to grow. So I'll kick it over to Steve.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many. We could extend this for another 2 hours, Phil. I could just tell the stories of the amazing people that, you know, that have influenced me and have prepared me. I mean, the fact that I'm even in the industry that I'm in is as the result of a very young, you know, just graduated from their undergraduate degree college kid who decided that they didn't want to pursue their degree, but instead break into the business world. And my very first boss, and this is way back in the early days of like the IBM AT had just come out, so that's how old I am, right? Who saw that I had an aptitude for computers, and without a lot of formality, without a lot of fanfare, just said, you know what? Tell you what, as long as you complete the assignments for the day, at that point, once you've done those things, the rest of the day, we'll give you the computer, we'll give you the software, I'll answer any questions that you have, and you can just learn and explore and figure this stuff out. And that set me on the path to be in technology for the next 35 plus years. So, you know, from the perspective of someone who has the ability to really give into the lives of other people, never underestimate what the result of that could be. And then from the mentee side, what I would say is, you know, society, we don't really talk about this importance of having mentors in your life. I don't know that our culture really reinforces that the way it may have in the past. What I would say is don't let those opportunities pass you by, right? Really look around your world with some intentionality and realize the benefit and the value that you can gain from really being open to what other people can gift to you through their experiences. If you just open that door. Now, that they're not going to come chase you down, right? But so the courage, the initiative has to come from you. But you're only going to see those opportunities if you open the eyes and look at the world around you and the people that you have the opportunity to reach out to. Some will be easy. They're right there. It's just, and are probably more than happy because they know you. You've got an existing relationship. Some may not know you from, any stranger, but you see some really value, and it might be a little intimidating. It might take a little courage to say, you don't know me, and if you choose not to even respond, I completely understand. But here's who I am. Here's what I would love to have the opportunity to do if you'd be willing to do so. Some of us aren't built necessarily to intuitively and naturally feel comfortable doing that, but wow, what opportunities it can it can present. The one example I would give you from my own personal life is I've been a good friend of Gene Kim's, author of the Phoenix Project, since the days he was actually writing the book. Not because I'm anyone special or whatever. I just happened to be at an event that he was doing around his book, and they had a mixer afterwards, and I just had the courage to say, you know what? Who am I? I'm nobody, but I'm going to go and I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to take a chance that just maybe, there'll be some good that comes out of that. And unfortunately, if anybody knows Gene, he's just one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met, and we forged a friendship right there, and it's continued to this very day. And my life has been so much better because of that, and it would be missing all of that if I hadn't had said, you know what, this is going to not be my comfort zone, but I'm going to walk across that room and I'm going to introduce myself, and maybe I get blown off. That's the risk you take, but maybe something great will come out of it, and it did.
And it's, I've got, like I said, we could probably extend this. I could tell you the very similar stories, right? That courage. We have a question in chat about, in the Q&A, how to identify mentors, how to approach them. I think you've answered that second part, right? If you have, especially if you haven't interacted with them. I do like one thing you said, Steve, about including in there in your text, it's okay if you don't respond. I don't know where I hit this part of my journey, but I'll have people reach out on LinkedIn sometimes, and I'm like, gosh, and what goes through my mind is, did I meet this person and I just forgot? Wow, I'm being such a jerk because I don't remember who they are, right? And so don't be afraid. People get busy, and I've been through something a lot. I took kind of 2 years where I had some stuff going on in my personal life where I wasn't out there in the community as much as I'd like to be. And so, that's changed the way I look at things. If somebody doesn't reply, sometimes I'm thinking, man, maybe they have something going on there with, maybe they have a sick kid or something, right? But give them that grace and be okay with them saying no, because sometimes it can be, a whole lot of different pressures may prevent them. But in making your case, hey, here's who I am, here's my background. I would actually add on there, if there's something you can think of that they might get out of the relationship, then it doesn't hurt to put that as well, right? So, early on in my SAFE journey, I was able to go to this amazing event in Scotland called the Safe Leadership Retreat. And I was one of 2 people from the United States that didn't work for a consulting company. And so what was interesting is that what I could offer to those people that gave me the gift of their time was the perspective of this starry-eyed internal change agent, some of the challenges that I faced as being internal. And what was interesting is that a few years later, one of those individuals, he asked me, he said, hey, could you introduce me to this company so that I can go in? I'm writing a book. I want to do some Gemba. And I'm like, absolutely. How can I help? Right. So Joe, anything you'd add to that on kind of the how to identify, how to approach, especially if you haven't interacted with them?
Yeah, I think it's tricky, but what Steve said about having courage is absolutely the case. I've had many interactions with mentors just because, I want to do that. But I would say, well, what is it you want to, if you're trying to identify a mentor, what is it you're trying to learn? What is it that you want? Steve mentioned about purpose. What's the purpose to initiate this conversation? And I was thinking when you mentioned the LinkedIn, you mean I'm supposed to know all 5,000 of my circle, my connection? I don't think that's that's really possible. I'm pretty sure Dunbar would have something to say about that. But a lot of it is what is it that you want to learn? It's not just going and say, well, I want to mentor. In what? Fatherhood? Yeah, you want to mentor in technology, software, hardware? What is it that you're trying to learn? What do you want to know? What do you want to do better at? What do you want to learn? And I think, I was just speaking with a friend today, actually, and he was explaining that there was this, rock star author that in finance that, they were really keen to know, and, who am I? And reached out to them on LinkedIn and said, hey, really admire your work. I've read all your books, and I just want to say, hey, I'm working on a paper, and I'd be interested if you might have some time to review, and sent their website information. And again, having the courage to do that, and knowing that this person is super busy, they wrote back and said, you know what, I'm actually working on something similar. Let's collaborate. And then there's a person who, got to meet their mentor, probably / idol, and really got something powerful out of the relationship. And I think we've all had experiences like that, but understand what it is you want to learn, and then reach out to those people you respect and admire. Have the courage to do that, but be okay if like Steve said, if they say, you know what, I'm really kind of busy right now, and I understand. Maybe it'll work out later, maybe it won't, but that's okay.
It's interesting hearing you talk, Joe. The words learn, know, right? Though, and I think that's something that I want to make sure. I'm looking at our bullet list, and we've covered almost everything here. But tips to getting the most from your mentor. I can't speak for all the mentors out there, but I can tell you that there's 3 individuals that I've mentored for multiple years, and I think of them. I look forward to the day when they all, I'm always happy to hear their continued success. Brian Vaughn, he's an SPCT now. Travis Moore and Michael Robertson, they're in the program. And there's just this pride you have. But what's interesting in all 3 of those cases, when I think about my interactions, when they're like, hey, I want to talk to Phil as a mentor, not Phil as a SPCT, or Phil as, sometime when the brief time they worked for me, as Phil as my boss, but just Phil as my mentor, right? And it's always about they're yearning to learn. Sometimes it's clarification, sometimes it's exploration, sometimes it's validation, right? But it's always about this hunger and this yearning to improve and to learn and to grow. And so I would just say that I've had other people that I've mentored here and there along the way. One person said, hey, look, I want to get some LPM field experience. This guy Eric, right? And he's one of those sponges that learns 80% of what 100 people have to offer, right? It's kind of that jack of all trades kind of guy. And he's like, I want to actually be part of an LPM implementation with you. And so he ended up joining Applied Frameworks for about a year, where he paired with me on an LPM implementation because he wanted to learn the craft of actually getting it to stick. And so, being open about your goals and what you're looking for, right? And the nice thing about that is, if you tell the person, the mentee, if you tell the mentor what you're hoping to gain, then they know if they're the right mentor for you, right? Like I'll tell you that, if somebody says to me, hey, I want to be an SPCT because I want to be in charge of 50 SPCs, or I want you to mentor me because I want to lead the agile transformation at company X, right? Well, if you're a consultant and you're asking me to mentor you on how to lead a transformation, I'm probably going to pass on that. Now, if you're the internal person, right? And I think about people that I wouldn't call it a formal mentoring relationship, but people like Elena Keck, who's been on a previous episode of the show. I helped her where I could, right? Mary Stevenson, who's on the call here with us, right? I helped her where I could because they were doing some amazing things. It was their transformation, their work, and I was honored to be part of it. And so, having said that, research the person you're asking for, because I believe there's some individuals that are motivated by that growth of others. But at the same time, there may be people out there that are motivated by sharing their, all the things they've done, right? And where, they just like to talk about it. And that can be okay too. You can learn from those individuals as well. I know we had a hand raised, and I don't know that we have the ability to ask audible questions. So Lim, if you could put your question into Q&A, we'd be happy to get to it. We have time. And I think we're kind of done with our agenda. So if you've got any additional questions here for Dr. Maynard and Joe or myself, I think you can see that most mentors have been mentees as well, because if you value mentoring, you want to be on both sides of that coin. Okay, no problem, Lim. What other questions do you have, or any final comments, Joe and Steve, if we don't get any questions? Or Laura, if you want to come off video and throw a couple words in as well, because I know you've been mentor and mentee sometimes.
I was just going to toss in, Phil, maybe as a final thing, because it's something that I'm in the process of right now. Think about the opportunity to have a personal board of directors. Introduced to that a few years ago and played around with it, but it's something that I'm rekindling my interest in. So think about what a board of directors does to help an organization, particularly help a CEO, right? So be the CEO of your own life, of your own career, of your own journey. But even CEOs need that, the benefit of that external. So what would your personal board of directors look like? Who or what kinds of people? And of course, if you know anything about boards of directors, they're not homogenous, right? They have different people who sit on the board for different reasons. They bring different things to the table. So kind of put that, that dream team of your personal board of directors together, and then think about, if I actually went and pursued this, how would that fit in my, in my world, in my life, and would I be willing to invest that time? But what could I get out of it? Just sharing that, because it's something I'm personally in the process of doing right now, and I'm really kind of excited about it, because it's just part of a lifelong learner journey that I've not fully explored, and I'm really kind of keen to do that.
Yeah, you're all funny. Is that a mandatory thing to be a good mentor? I appreciate you saying I'm funny. I know I try sometimes, but I think that that's something that's mandatory to be a good servant leader, right? That ability to be transparent, to create alignment, to be vulnerable, to be authentic. Those all require you to be uncomfortable. And for some people, being funny is part of that whole mechanism of being human and being authentic. So I would say yes, except for Joe.
I was funny once. For me, it's not a reaction or something. It's just part of who I am, because I think in my case, I'm a bit of an introvert, and I think being funny or trying to be funny is a way to deal with that discomfort.
Laura, you're an SPC. So Laura Caldy here, she leads our sales and marketing for applied frameworks, but she is also an SPC, and I know she's been a mentor and a mentee. I have an internal distrust of salespeople, and I think I now have three salespeople that three salespeople that I would consider to be trusted advisors to me in my life. Not a huge number, but Laura, you've heard a lot of the conversations here. Any parting thoughts for you, or just kind of from listening to our convo?
Well, I guess what came up for me is the advantage and the responsibility that leaders at all levels of the organization have in order to make it possible to make it safe for people in all parts of the organization to request and ask for mentorship, right? Because it's one thing to be a person who is predisposed to ask for help, right? That's your personal responsibility. It's a total another thing to feel like it's a career enabler to do that in a public way inside an organization, right? And so I think it's a system. And if leaders at all levels make it clear that they welcome individuals taking responsibility by seeking out mentors and by offering it up to other people, that's when the power of mentorship can really explode inside an organization. And it can be crushed incredibly quickly if people feel that by asking for help is a career limiting gesture.
I think I've lived there in my one of the companies I worked for. They, thinking about Westrom's model, they were both simultaneously pathological and bureaucratic. I've still never seen a culture that was so destructive, and there were pockets of amazing, good generative stuff, but it really can be tough. And so, I'll just close with this, is that you can find mentors everywhere. If you don't have the psychological safety to look for a mentor inside your company, find one outside. So, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Steve. You two are so amazing, and I appreciate the gift of your time for the community here. This will be up on YouTube, and I truly appreciate you and everybody for taking the time to attend.
Appreciate the opportunity, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Our pleasure.